Welcome to the Register's Report. My name is John Buckley. I am the Register of Deeds of Plymouth County, and this show is about Plymouth County real estate. This show is being taped in June. We're going to be talking about the May recordings at the Registry of Deeds. We have a great guest in the second segment of the show, Angelo Nuby from MassHousing, and we're going to wrap it up with some Plymouth County and Plymouth Colony history. So let's go right to the first image of deeds. So there were 637 deeds, which are sales of property, recorded in May, more than the 570 in April, 10% less than last year. And you're going to see the next image is a listing of all the sales in Plymouth County, 27 communities. Abington and Whitman, Plymouth and Brockton had the highest number of sales, but every community had activity. The next bar chart you're going to see is of mortgages. You can see mortgages bumped up a little bit this month. 1,151 mortgages recorded in May, more than the 1095 in April. Year to date, we're down 4%, but with the inventory low and the interest rates high, that's not a bad number. You're going to see a bar chart of foreclosure deeds. A foreclosure deed is when a lender has taken back property from someone. So across Plymouth County, there are only 6 foreclosure deeds in May, less than the 13 in April. And year to date, however, up 17. During COVID, there was a moratorium, and a lot of lenders are still catching up. And you can see by the next bar chart, foreclosure notices, how that bump has gone up. We had 71 foreclosure notices in May, more than the 62 in April. So basically, people are getting caught up in people that are behind. If you are behind, reach out to a federal housing counselor as soon as you can to try to get a modification or some way to fix your problem. I'm also showing you a listing of foreclosure deeds and notices for the 27 towns of Plymouth County. And as you can see, there are a lot of zeros there. You know, Wareham, Plymouth, Brockton have shown activity. But again, if you're in trouble, don't hesitate, reach out. And last but not least in this segment, a lot of people are concerned about fraud. If you go to our website, PlymouthDeeds.org, you can sign up for a free fraud alert. If you sign up, put in your email, if something gets recorded against your property, you get an email and you'll know to look at your chain of title. And I'll have a great guest coming on in the next segment, Angelo Nuby from MassHousing. So we'll see you next segment. Welcome back to the Register's Report. Again, my name is John Buckley. I am the Register of Deeds for Plymouth County. And in this segment of the show, we've always done something educational. We've had surveyors, appraisers, home inspectors, many people involved in the real estate community. And I have a great guest here today, a repeat guest from MassHousing, Angelo Nuby. Angelo, welcome back.
Thank you, John. Always a pleasure to come back and speak with you.
So why don't you just share for people that are watching a little bit about how you get into your part of the real estate community?
So certainly, like so many of us, so many decades ago, I entered the business in 1983, and it was by happenstance. My wife, who was in the business, was helping me out by typing a resume on a typewriter. So this is a few years ago, 1982, 1983. And I was able to start in a position as a mortgage processor. And over the years, moved up. I actually was living in Brockton at the time, Fairway Oaks, off of Oak Street. We were first-time home buyers.
Right.
In 1983, we purchased a condominium. I think it was 13.5% at that time. But I was living here and was working for a small savings bank, Plymouth 5-cent Savings Bank, which no longer exists.
Recognizable to me, though.
Yeah, but a great institution,
Yeah.
and it gave me those first steps. It gave me those first opportunities to start in this business, and now here, 41 years later, 17 years of those with MassHousing, but many of those years with institutions in Brockton, Rockland Trust, Sovereign Bank when it was here. So I've made my rounds, but I've spent many of those years right here in Brockton.
So why don't you share a little information about what MassHousing is and how it helps people?
Certainly. So MassHousing is a quasi-public agency, and for most folks, they just see us as a state agency. But our primary focus is to work with first-time home buyers. We want to do outreach, make first-time home buyers especially aware of programs so that they don't get caught up in believing some of the myths. I have to put down 20%. I have to have the super high credit score. I can only live in certain communities because there are all these restrictions on what we do and how we do it. So what MassHousing does is make those programs available to our lending partners. These are banks, credit unions, and mortgage companies. They're our partners. They're the folks who actually sit down with those consumers, do the processing, but they use MassHousing's programs. And the biggest part about what MassHousing does is we have down payment assistance. And we have down payment assistance for all levels of income. It doesn't matter where you want to buy. We've made some changes to our programs in the last few months, so it makes it easier to access our programs. But not only that, down payment assistance at either $30,000 or $25,000, which is a loan, is available to low and moderate income buyers and individuals who are making up to 135% of area median income. So this is a range anywhere, say for instance, from $55,000 up to $190,000, depending on where they're buying.
Well, and how does that work? How do they reach out to you?
So the first thing that they would need to do is go to our website, MassHousing.com. The other option is to reach out to us directly. They can go to MassHousing.com, and there's an email address, homeownership@MassHousing.com, or they can call our 888 number, which is 888-843-6432. And they can speak directly to someone who can kind of head them in the right direction. We want everyone to be educated. We want you to take a first-time home buyer class. We want you to be prepared so that when you buy that home, you're in a stable environment. You've got the best program. You've got the best product for you and for your family.
So your programs, in a lot of cases, are in partnership with banks?
Yes, and in fact, we have some of the local banks that we work with. Rockland Trust is one, Harbor One is another one of the institutions locally that we work with. We have about 100 institutions that we work with, and many of them also have down payment assistance that can be combined with MassHousing, layered with MassHousing, so that we can drop that mortgage down and we can make that payment as easy as possible on individuals and families.
Yeah, I know I've said to you on many occasions, that is what I think is the most difficult part of this tough market we're in right now, first-time home buyers.
Yeah, it is, because they're being hit. We've got the issue that is surrounding the market now with how realtors and agents are being compensated, and much of that may be pushed back onto the first-time home buyer. But that still hasn't been resolved. But between the market increasing and, of course, the market in Brockton, when we bought in Brockton so many years ago, we paid $32,000 for our condo. That same condo now would be $300,000, $350,000. We moved into a front-to-back split. That same home now is in the $400,000+ range.
Plus, yeah.
Yeah, so it's so difficult for first-time home buyers, and we want them to be educated. We want them to make them aware of so many programs that are out there for them. It's just a matter of accessing those programs, preparing yourself, educating yourself, and that's what we're all about.
Can you give me another example of a sought-after program?
So yes, there are several, and there are several now that have become statewide programs. So if you have the opportunity and you're looking for assistance, one program is called the STASH program, which is STASH. Maha.org is the organization. This is a resource that is available now statewide. Started in Boston, but now is available statewide, up to $40,000. You do have to do a little bit of work. We want you to be educated. We want you to be prepared, so there is a little bit of work. And then there's the Federal Home Loan Bank that has resources that come out twice a year. Those funds will be available again in the fall. So if you're ready to go now and you're ready to start the process, get the first-time homebuyer class out of the way and look towards accessing some of these resources that are available.
Now, do you folks do any projecting into the future as to activity?
Yes, I mean we do look at rates. The home ownership rate itself is something that we're also always looking at, and something that we've decided to participate a little bit more, to jump in a little bit more. Not only are we working with first-time home buyers, but we also work with both smaller and larger developers who are producing homes that are affordable, and in many cases these are homes that are both rental but also part of home ownership. And the most important piece now is developing home ownership opportunities. So we're working at multiple layers. 40Bs, deed restricted properties, are an option for that lower and moderate income buyer, but we want to make sure that we develop home ownership kind of across the board, and specifically in gateway communities. And Brockton is one of those great communities, which is a gateway community, so there's a lot of opportunities here, and we're making more and more resources available for communities like Brockton.
So I've noticed in many of the newspapers stories about deed restrictions relative to living in a place for a period of time. Can you describe?
So a deed restricted property, or 40B, and they're by many names. Some people call them lottery properties because you have to prepare yourself.
Sure.
And you have to take a first-time homebuyer class. That's a prerequisite for any of these programs. But the 40B, or deed-restricted piece of it, is that there's a set-aside of these units or homes. Some of them are homes. Some of them are multifamilies. They're single families and they're condominiums. Many of them are brand new, and almost all of them are refurbished, because we don't want you as a first-time homebuyer to have any issues when you move into that home. You're able to, as a buyer, put down a low down payment, in many cases 1.5%, some cases a little bit more. You buy into that home, and if it's a condominium, the fees are a little bit lower. If it's a home, the purchase price is lower. If it's a multifamily. Now, you don't share in 100% of the equity, so you certainly aren't buying a $450,000 home for, say, $250,000. And having that equity go to you. But it allows you to stay in your community. It allows your children to go to the same schools. It allows you to stay in the community that you were raised in. So these types of properties, there aren't a lot of them, but they are out there. And another great location, I know but people say, oh, you're giving out all these websites, but chapa.org, CHAPA.org, is one of the best locations to research as far as deed restricted lottery properties are concerned. But please reach out to us at MassHousing.com, and we can give you more information about any of these programs that I've mentioned today.
And CHAPA's been around for a long time. I know you just went to a conference with
Yeah, CHAPA is a great organization. They're a statewide advocacy organization. They are there for home buyers, advocating for resources, advocating for education, and working with both lenders and nonprofits across the state to make sure that the curriculums are the same, to make sure that resources are there, just overall to advocate for that first-time home buyer, for that consumer.
So what do you see coming up in the future for the housing market?
Well, we see, we're hoping that there are more resources. I know the governor and many of our legislators are working on different types of resources that they can make available for first-time home buyers. I know the housing market itself, we hope that it stabilizes a little bit. We can't continue to go up. Rentals are, of course, at their highest level right now, monthly rental costs. But what we're hoping for is that there will be many more developments across the Commonwealth, new housing available, affordable housing, and we see that market is changing a little bit, and we're hopeful that it's going to continue to change.
Well, you've always been a great spokesman and representative of MassHousing. I know you're making a transition
Yes.
that many people know about, but do you want to share that with the
Sure.
public?
So I am in retirement mode. I am in retirement
Not
mode.
yet. Not getting there.
I'm getting there. I'm getting there. So my last formal day with MassHousing will be June 28th, and it's been 41 years. And I have to say, I continue to talk about Brockton with a smile because I lived here for so many years and I worked here for so many years. So everything kind of comes back to the South Shore and Brockton. But I am retiring, but I will be staying on with MassHousing as a contractor through the end of the year so that I can work with many of the great organizations, Brockton Housing Partnership, the Mayor's Office, Neighborhood Housing Solutions, which is a wonderful nonprofit organization. But I will be retiring soon, but we will be staying on to help my predecessor to get to whoever is the new Angelo to help that person through the process through the end of the year.
Well, on behalf of the people of Plymouth County, and I know you are a resident of Plymouth County.
I am a resident. I'm a happy resident of Plymouth County. We started out in Brockton in 1982, and we live in Hanson now. We've been in Hanson for 30 years.
Wow.
So I love Plymouth County. I plan on doing a little bit more fishing and a little bit more golfing at DW, but certainly staying within the county.
Well, I wish you the best of luck.
Thank you, John.
And you've always been a great person to work with.
Thank you, and the same here. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, great. Welcome back to the Registered Report. My name is John Buckley. I'm the Register of Deeds of Plymouth County. I want to thank Angelo Nuby for coming on the program again. And if you watch that segment, you know that Angelo is retiring soon. He'll be a great loss to all of us. We've all had a lot of great partnerships with Angelo. Angelo was with us during the housing crisis of 2008 when a lot of homes were facing foreclosure, and he's been a great partner to many people, lenders, and first-time home buyers, and we'll miss him. In this segment of the show, we always do something lighter in nature. The holidays for the month are World Milk Day on the 1st, D-Day was the 6th, Flag Day was the 14th, Father's Day was the 16th, Juneteenth is tomorrow, summer solstice on the 20th. But we're going to talk about some of our great lighthouses. A lot of people are starting to flock to the waters. Hannah Thomas at Plymouth Light, Gurnet Light, located on Gurnet Point on the north entrance to Plymouth Harbor, had the first female lighthouse keeper in America. It was a wooden dwelling with a lantern. It was built on land of John and Hannah Thomas. But when her husband went to war during the Revolutionary War and never came back, he was killed in action, Hannah had to take over, and she became America's first female lighthouse keeper. They sold the lighthouse to the United States government. It is presently cared for by Project Gurnet and Bug Light. The next Plymouth County record is another lighthouse, Situate Lighthouse. Situate Lighthouse has some great story to it too. While it's entering the final stages of restoration, there's a great history because during the War of 1812, specifically the summer of 1814, the British were trying to get into Situate Harbor. They had a couple of frigates. They were going to enter at Cedar Point, and Rebecca and Abigail, with their parents being away, got a bunch of people and established a lot of noise, like troops were mustering, and that scared the British away. They're called the American Army of Two, and many people still say when the crashing of the waves and the wind during storms, you can still hear a fife and drum playing on Cedar Point. It is now owned by the town and operated by the Situate Historical Society, but it's a great place to visit and watch the boats come in and out of the harbor. Last but not least, for our lighthouses, is another Situate property, Minot's Ledge Light. It was constructed in 1860 and located 1 mile offshore of Situate. And the first one was demolished. It was washed away. They built another lighthouse because of the shipwrecks. And on May 1st, 1894, a new flashing lantern was installed. And it flashed 143, Morse code for I love you. That's why it's known as a lover's light. It is now in private ownership, but if you ever get a chance to drive out and watch that light flashing, it's a beautiful sight. And last but not least, one of our Plymouth Colony records. Plymouth Colony consisted of what is now Plymouth County, what is now Barnstable County, and what is now Bristol County, but it also extended all the way down to Tiverton, Rhode Island. But as part of that, included the establishment of the town of Freetown in Bristol County. So with the language of the court in 1683 was the court orders that the inhabitants of the Freeman's Land at the Fall River shall be a township and have a constable and a grand juryman and be henceforth called by the name of Freetown. We've had the Freetown folks come up, the Bristol County Historical Group, and it's really been quite an interesting thing to be part of the Plymouth Colony records. The last Friday of the month, we always share those records for people to come into the Plymouth County Registry. And there's a little add-on here, I'm not sure it made the screen. It's of all the different towns established in Plymouth County from Plymouth Colony in their dates. Duxbury, 1637. Yarmouth, 1638. Rochester, 1638. Taunton, first known as Cohonnet, 1639. And Marshfield, 1640, and other boundaries in that. In the court order for Miles Standish and others purchasing the land in Bridgewater. If you go to the East Bridgewater Council on Aging, park in their parking lot, and walk up on the hill next to the Council on Aging on Route 106 in East Bridgewater, that is the spot where that land transfer occurred. And there's a tablet there identifying the consideration for that sale. It's a pretty cool place if you haven't been there yet. So I want to thank the folks here at Brockton Cable Access. Michelle Hepchie is always a great person to work with here, and she had her intern Curtis Reese that helped out today. We like to share information for people for what, for most people, is their most valuable asset, their home. So have a great summer. We'll see you in July, and be healthy and be safe. Thank you.